consequence of the power of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. In the 1970s, do you guys remember how much the price of gas was? Early 70s? Anyone remember? 45? 35, yeah. It would be about that low. I mean, there were a couple taxes for highways and all that, but you're really getting gas for maybe a quarter, maybe at most 50 cents a gallon. That's because a barrel of oil was through these monopoly arrangements. The U.S. had a monopoly of Saudi oil at the time. We just grabbed it all and brought it back to the U.S. So it was $3 a barrel. Now it's about $100 to give you some comparison. Well, they didn't like that in the Middle East. They saw it as their own patrimony being literally sucked up and given away for extremely low prices by oil companies that did not work on an open market but actually set prices. They said, this is how much we're going to pay you. And for a while, OPEC was a joke. But in the 1970s, things started to change. It started with Algeria. Algeria isn't on your map, but it's to the right just a little bit. You go past Egypt, Libya, and then you can reach Algeria. Algeria was a really interesting case. They had fought very hard for their independence. France would not let them go, in part because of their oil. When they finally did get independence, it was on the condition that just as Saudi Arabia gave all their oil to the U.S., Algeria would give all their oil to France. Well, after a couple of years of independence, they said, forget it. We're not going to do it. End of story. And so they just stopped. They stopped giving their oil. They nationalized the industry, kicked out the French corporations. And to the surprise of people in the Middle East, nothing happened. The French didn't invade or anything like that, and they got to keep their oil. This really incentivized these other countries that have been getting such low royalties because they're based on the price of oil to try to set new terms. It started with Libya. Libya followed the lead under a charismatic young leader, then young, Gaddafi. And finally, 1973. So Algeria was 1971. By 1973, the whole climate had changed. And following a war between Israel versus Egypt and Syria, and a few troops from Iraq, I believe, they decided that they were going to both punish countries that supported Israel, but more to the point, they wanted an excuse to change the terms of the arrangements that had controlled their oil since the 1920s. These exclusivity contracts, where they're basically, again, losing their patrimony, losing their natural resources for next to nothing. And so OPEC raised those prices. So that oil that was, 35 cents a gallon? Was it 35 cents a gallon in 1975? No. In fact, OPEC, through an embargo against the United States and the Netherlands, which also supported Israel, and also better use of supply and demand, was able to raise the price of oil to 4 times what it was 2 years before.